Neuvillette is a hydrocatalyst DPS with a strong on-field presence with damage that scales entirely off of HP. This HP scaling, along with the fact that he has a unique charge attack, means that he does not compete for normal supports that are usually in a lot of teams, such as Yelan, Xingqiu, or Bennett. His unique charge attack also allows him to do AoE quite efficiently while also doing impressive single target DPS. This makes him quite the flexible damage dealer. This unique charge attack of his is also going to make him not reliant on reactions to deal damage, as it's not exactly compatible with typical supports for reactions. He can provide a pretty impressive amount of hydro for his other teammates though, allowing them to do a little bit more damage, and he also does still value reactions thanks to his Ascension passive. His pure HP scaling in combination with his unique charge attack can make him rather difficult to find a really meaningful weapon to equip on him, but he does still have many good choices. As previously listed in the pros section, he can be a little bit difficult to find meaningful supports for. That doesn't mean he doesn't have good ones, just that some of the best ones we have aren't exactly compatible. This really is both a pro and a con. Finally, his playstyle can be rather limited. Now, if you enjoy what he does with his unique charge attack, that's fantastic because that's about the only thing Neuvillette can actually do. So if you find repetitive characters that don't have much room to branch out a little boring, Neuvillette might not be the character for you. But as always, let's go over his kit so you understand how he works. Starting with his bread and butter, his normal attack talent. Now, he doesn't really do his normal attack for anything more than just to apply some hydro, and his regular charge attack is nothing special either. However, if you hold the button down, that's when you get to the special part. By continuing to hold the button down, you continue to charge up his charge attack, indicated by the circle in front of your character. You can move around while charging it and while firing it, and while firing it, you can even aim it slightly up and down. You also get the added benefit of being able to hover over water while you're shooting and charging it. And yep, you can even spin around in circles while you're shooting the beam at full 360 degrees. Now let's talk mechanics. To put it as simply as I can, when referring to his charge attack, I will only mean the held version. That is the only part of his attack that actually matters. The held version of his charge attack does not consume stamina and rapidly does hydro damage based on his maximum HP. Now, he doesn't need to actually be consuming HP to do his charge attack. And regardless if you're consuming HP or not, it will last 3 seconds unless you cancel it early yourself by jumping or dashing. The self-damage aspect of Neuvillette's charge attack not only helps him maximize his 4-piece artifact set bonus, but also his signature weapon. Fontaine characters are also likely to benefit from this, given that it is clearly a core mechanic of Fontaine. Okay, now what about healing? How do you get that damage back and get his health back up? Because it also is important that he stays as healthy as possible. That is where his elemental skill and burst come in, but a little bit more on those shortly. Now, they do spawn these things called source water droplets that you should be familiar with from the Hydro Traveler's kit. Absorbing these not only reduces or completely negates the charge time of Neuvillette's charge attack, but they also heal him for maximum HP. The range indicator on the ground also indicates the range at which you can absorb source water droplets. Now, luckily, if you thought that was a little bit complex, his skill and his burst could not be any simpler. His elemental skill does a decent little chunk of HP scaling damage and puts 3 droplets on the ground. This allows you to do 1 instant charge attack and also heal 50% of his health roughly. And that's the main purpose of his elemental skill, just to provide droplets for his charge attack, which is also just like his elemental burst. Now, just like the elemental skill, this thing's only purpose is to provide source water droplets, except the main difference is his elemental burst does quite an impressive amount of damage. At higher levels, the total thing is easily capable of doing over 50% of Neuvillette's HP and damage, while also providing 6 source water droplets. Now, his first Ascension passive is where reactions come in. He gets a bonus up to 3 times for each unique hydro reaction that's triggered while he's in the party. You'll also know when he's at maximum stacks because his hair and his clothes will start glowing bright blue. This does mean that you are encouraged to have a diverse party of 4 different elements unless you get his first constellation. His next Ascension passive is a very simple hydro damage bonus based on his current HP above 30% of his maximum HP. This will mostly deal with itself because of the source water droplets healing yourself. You don't really have to worry about keeping this up. As for the talent levels themselves, his charge attack is going to be the highest priority. Elemental burst is the next highest priority, being a relatively strong nuke, and the skill is the lowest priority, being basically level it as high as you want to, because while it does do some decent damage, it doesn't represent a strong portion of his overall DPS. Now let's talk weapons, because while he does have a couple great options, he also has a lot of mediocre ones. Starting out with the obvious, his signature weapon is best in slot the Tome of the Eternal Flow. This is perfectly well suited for him. Low base attack with a high crit damage substat, and a passive that is perfectly suited to exactly what he wants to do. An excellent, easier to get alternative is the new Battle Pass weapon, the Sacrificial Jade. Now, at a first glance, this may look at purely a support weapon, but it's really not that hard to stay off field for 5 seconds, activate Neuvillette's support Neuvillette's abilities, and then get back on him with the HP bonus and the Elemental Mastery. Now the Elemental Mastery may not always be the best of bonus, but hey, it's something. And then of course it has a crit rate substat which pairs well with his crit damage ascension stat. Unlike most typical Catalyst users, the Wit Sith isn't exactly the most appealing choice due to the fact that the attack is a completely dead stat and the Elemental Mastery doesn't really do much on Neuvillette, but the crit damage substat is always nice. Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds is a solid 5-star option with its crit rate substat, but the bonus isn't exactly the best given that's a lot of field time for Neuvillette to be on, and he's generally going to swap off his supports long before that bonus ever maxes out. After this, there are a ton of options with HP percent substats, crit damage. Any of these will really work, but they are going to be mostly stat sticks, meaning that if you do pick one that doesn't really have a passive that works, make sure it has the lowest base attack possible, that way more of the value goes into the substat, because if you didn't know, it is always a balance. Lower the attack, the higher the substat, and vice versa. Now let's get into Neuvillette's best artifact sets and artifact stats. His best in slot set is going to be the Maraschino Cherry Hunter set. Of course, that's not its real name, that's just what I call it. Now, the crit rate this set offers helps balance out his crit stats, given that he has a crit damage ascension, and if you get his signature weapon, he's really going to want this crit rate. The 2 set is also going to offer a nice bonus to his charge attack damage. He does also have a few alternatives, not that I would recommend them, they're merely just things to hold you over until you can get your hands on a 4-piece of the previous set. Heart of Depth has an easy bonus for him to trigger, and it benefits him completely. Retracing Bowline is much of the same. If you are going to use him with a shielder, which many people will if they don't get his C1, this is purely just going to be a 40% damage increase to his charge deck, while also being a survivability increase. However, most people won't have a 4-piece of this ready to go, and I would definitely not recommend farming resin on it. Adversely, a set that probably everyone has tons of amazing artifacts for is Shimenawa's. The 50% damage bonus for his charge deck is fantastic and all. You don't really want to be spending his energy though. He really quite values using it because it just makes his charge deck even better. Not to mention the 2-piece attack bonus for Shimenawa's is completely wasted. Other than that, you can mix and match any 2-piece bonus of HP percent and Hydro damage bonus, of which we have quite a few options for now. Your end goal is going to be to end up on this set, as I said, it's just perfect for Neuvillette. It has everything he wants. For artifact substats, you're going to want the typical substats with crit stats and HP for his scaling damage. You're going to want an HP Sands, a Hydro damage Goblet of course. Circlet is dependent on what weapon you have. If you have a signature weapon and his ideal 4-piece artifact set, you're likely going to want a crit rate circlet. However, if you decide to go the route of the Sacrificial Jade, you're likely going to want a crit damage weapon, especially if you have the ideal 4-piece artifact set. That's going to be a ton of free crit rate for you. For substats, it's as simple as, again, balancing the crit stats according to what you need, getting HP percent whenever you can, and then getting a little bit of energy recharge. No other stats really matter. Now for teammates and team comps. The truth is Neuvillette is a Hydro character. That means he's privileged to fit in a lot of places. You can try a Hyper Balloon team like I have on screen here. This does allow him to fit in every reaction he needs to maximize his Ascension bonus, while also allowing him to focus on his pure raw damage. Raiden is a pretty great teammate because her E can be triggered by any form of damage, meaning that Neuvillette's charge attack isn't limited in this sense. Baiju offers him a ton of healing, which is really quite useful for him. Also a little bit of shielding to help him with interruption resistance, but it's not that reliable and you may find yourself still getting interrupted sometimes. Then of course there's Kazuha. When you're looking at a unit like Neuvillette who just does so much raw Hydro damage, of course Kazuha is going to be in consideration. He is always going to be one of his best teammates. For sustain options, as you would have guessed, Zhongli is going to be one of his best teammates. He really appreciates the shield, protecting his charge attack from interruptions. It also makes sure that he doesn't lose more HP than he's already losing from his self-drain. Layla is a respectable alternative to Zhongli, applying some easy off-field reactions that will even sometimes freeze, without needing to do something like auto attack, which a character like Toma would need you to do. If you'd rather go the healing route, Baiju is my personal pick, as he has portable Dendro application, which is fantastic for Neuvillette teams, and also extremely potent healing. Kuki isn't a bad pick either, but she is a little bit slower on the healing, and she does nothing to offer any interruption resistance, making her pretty reliant on C1 unless you double her up with a shielder. Alternatively, you can go a little into the meme territory and try to do some like Burgeon Hyper Balloon team where you include Dia to get the interruption resistance while using Kuki's healing and naturally high EM in most of her regular builds to do some kind of fun reaction teams. My personal favorite is the original team I showed. I love any chance to use Baiju, and quite frankly, this is basically just a Neuvillette hyper carry team. I imagine Neuvillette's prospective teammates will increase dramatically as we get more Fontaine characters. And if you happen to be a little bit of a whale or a dolphin or just a Yelan fan, if you have C4 Yelan, she does buff maximum HP and she will trigger the Hydro Resonance, but her burst is basically going to be nothing more than a passive damage increase. You're not really going to be able to trigger it that often with Neuvillette's normal kit. It's likely going to take a little bit before we really find out his best teams. We know what kind of characters he doesn't work with. You know, characters like Xingqiu or Yelan that require the character to attack, they're not exactly the best with him. But if somebody does something off field like Fischl or Raiden with her skill that just triggers on any damage, or Albedo for example, they can work great with him. And that is everything for the C0 guide. I hope you have fun with Neuvillette because honestly he is a blast to play. Having a character that just fires a continuous beam of water is something I never expected to get, and I'm glad we have it. So thank you to you for watching, thank you to my members, my patrons for supporting me as always, and I'll see you in the next one.
Attaboy!